Let's now look at the meaning of the relative clauses. So post-modifying relative clauses may help to identify the referent of the head noun. They may narrow down the reference of the head. For example, the work they do is that they pinpoint the referent, that who we are talking about. So the whole relative clause actually has a referent, and the job of the relative clause is to specify that referent. For example, in the man who lives next door, the who lives next door has a referent which is man. The relative clause who lives next door indicate who exactly the speaker is talking about, and that is the referent of the relative clause, right? So if you look at this, the referent may be ambiguous in some sentences. So that's why when we bring a relative clause which very clearly pinpoints the reference, so we know that who the person or who we are talking about. The clause provides information that is essential for the identification of the referent. I mean, without that information, we might be in an ambiguity that what the person is talking about, what person is being referred to, or what thing is being referred to. Relative clauses of this kind are necessary if it is not clear from the context who is the speaker referring to. So they are said to be restrictive. So these are restrictive clauses because they pinpoint the referent. They tell us who they are talking about and make a distinction between referent restrictive clause which have a specific referent and non-restrictive clause which are not necessary because the referent is already very clear. So what is the name of the film which is now showing at the ABC any cinema? So which is now showing, it is a relative clause, and the referent of this relative clause is film. We are not sure about which film the speaker is talking about. The book which I ordered have finally arrived. So which I have ordered basically tells the listener that there is a specific book we are talking about. And similarly, the man who saw the accident was not prepared to testify. Who saw the accident? It's not every other man. It's a specific man who has the attribute of having seen the accident. So relative clauses may also be a non-restrictive, as for example, the Pope who was expected to visit Poland again this summer decided to go to France instead. If you look at this, the Pope is a person who, is a referent of the relative clause, which is very clear. It does not need any clarity. However, the speaker sometimes thinks to give extra information. This is a sort of an extra information, or we may call it a parenthetical information, which is not necessary because the moment we use the word Pope, it is known to everyone that which person we are talking about. So in this case, this is non-restrictive. And if you look at this, who was expected to visit Poland again this summer, this is a relative clause and it is separated from its referent by a comma. So a non-restrictive clause is always separated from its referent with a pair of commas. Clauses of this kind, non-restrictive, there is no further identification, right? So these modifying clause provide additional or non-essential information about the head. It is worth noting that the distinction between restrictive and non-restrictive relative clauses also apply to other types of post-modification and premodification. Obviously, the information which is not necessary must be put into commas, and the reader must know that what type of information we are giving, whether it's restrictive, essential, or non-restrictive and non-essential.